Heroin would be the grim reaper of the 1980s. But the big story of the 1970s was the story of a sustained attack against the state. The first shots were fired by I.R.A, but the main assault came from the I.R.A. The offensive forced successive governments to meet fire with fire and take their eye off the looming menace of organised crime.
I don't think that it overstates it to say that, in part at least, the present criminal situation is a legacy of the terrorist violence that arose in the early 70s. I think it gave an example to a lot of others that they could act in a ruthless and vicious fashion and hope to get away with it.
Organised crime as we know it today hadn't then emerged except, and significantly except, in the ranks of the provos, because the cult of organised crime and the cult of the gun began in those times with the provos, spilled over into gangland in the cities, Limerick, Dublin, and to a lesser extent Cork. And I think one can say without fear of contradiction that the appalling crime situation that we have today can be linked quite clearly back to the provos and their campaign of the 70s and 80s.
We would not have had a descent into organised crime to the extent that we have unfortunately suffered from. And to me, it is inescapable that the direct causal link is the I.R.A. and the introduction of the gun and the introduction of the bomb and the application of organisation to criminal activity.
We had a major paramilitary threat to deal with over the years. And if it is suggested that this should not have in any way distracted from the fight against ordinary crime, if one wants to call it that, well, that is a spurious argument. If we had no paramilitary activity, yes, we would have crime. We would have organised crime. But I believe not on the scale that we have today.
It brought down the value of human life in Irish society as we knew it. And sadly, that's happening with the drug gangs now. Very difficult. They operate in a cell situation the same as the provos operated. They don't tell many outside the cell what's going on because the stakes are very high. They're all fighting the same battle out there for supremacy in the supply of drugs.
Organised crime in Ireland centres around criminal fraternities or criminal networks, far more loosely structured than anything that was the case in the I.R.A. However, these criminal connections that are required for drug trafficking, for money laundering and so on, seem to have piggybacked on the connections that were already in place because of paramilitary organisations such as the I.R.A. And certainly the availability of guns and the know-how as to how to access these guns seems to have been passed down from paramilitary organisations to these looser criminal groups.
In all,